Good morning, everyone. So, guys, it looks like World War III is finally here. Most mainstream media outlets are now reporting on this. They're saying that, the insertion of North Korean troops into the Ukrainian war front could start the beginning of World War III. Guys, if we look at these things and think what is an inevitability, these things are happening and they're moving forwards, and it seems like we have a political class who are just in absolute denial. So, guys, before we get into the video, please, if you've not done so, hit the like button and the subscribe button down below. And I think there's a bell there that you guys can get notifications on my next videos. As we move forwards, in this, what do we even call it now? We have literally got a situation where, if you've been following this channel, we have got the potential now for North Koreans to be facing off against South Koreans in a European country. This is absolutely unheard of. This is literally the definition of a world war: multiple countries fighting multiple wars on multiple fronts. That's not even mentioning the Middle East. The conflicts in the Middle East, where the United States has already shown its active involvement. We know that from previous statements from Donald Trump, from JD Vance, that the United States are not going to abandon Israel. So, there's no ambiguous, there's nothing ambiguous about that statement. JD Vance has been very clear. Donald Trump's been very clear. Now, I want to focus this video on what's happening in Ukraine, because I do think if you live in Europe, that's the biggest threat. And, around the world as well, I do think this is a bigger threat right now, because China's not made any active involvements into any conflict. So, just looking then at, all you have to do is look at the mainstream this morning, and there are so many, so many articles now talking about this conflict in Ukraine and how this new aspect of North and South Korean troops potentially facing off there. It seems like a lot of people this morning have woke up and they're catching up on, what's happening. But I think, and I'll put all those links in the, description. But the main thing here is now this involvement, because you've got to understand that any involvement by North Korea is synonymous now with China, because China doesn't do anything without the thumbs up from North Korea. It's, that's just how it works in that region. So if we look at the battle space then in Ukraine, the Ukrainians are really struggling for manpower. Now, if we look back historically, when they claim that they're gonna, then they have 10,000 troops, they normally have a lot more than that. So I would say this first batch of up to 12,000 North Korean troops, I would say that is just the first, wave. I think North Korea are going to be supplying a lot more troops because of the commercial agreements now between I think commercial is the right word to use. The commercial agreements between these two countries. So Russia will be giving North Korea items, I think the items that they're obviously going to be star items, whereby, this could be, nuclear knowledge, nuclear know-how. And if we look back as well through what Vladimir Putin said previously, he said quite openly that he will arm the enemies of the West. He will give enemies of the West weapons and munitions and know-how. North Korea is one of those really strange places where literally anything goes if you're part of the government. So I'd say we're going to start to see a lot more cyber attacks coming from North Korea. We're going to see a lot more asymmetric attacks coming from North Korea. We're going to see a lot more of these attacks whereby you can use hackers, you can use anything you want, really, as in the online space, in the cyberspace, because now Russia's involvement with North Korea, their military ties have grown stronger. That will be joint development. So attacks that you would normally see, cyber attacks I'm talking about now, cyber attacks that you would normally see come from originate in Russia. These can all be moved to the facilities that they have in North Korea. Now, we know that they've got facilities in North Korea because there's been lots and lots of articles done. In fact, I'll share some in the link to this description. But North Korea is one of those places that a lot of these, what's the word I'm looking for? these hacks where they demand money and they'll unfreeze the information in these systems. A lot of those originate from North Korea. So I would say as we move forward and we're looking at more attacks coming, I would say we're going to see a massive uptick in cyber attacks. Remember, if you live in the United Kingdom, can you remember over the summer when we had all the fires at the storage facilities? We had all the it seemed like it was like once or twice a month when a messaging app would go down or an online service would go down or a system would crash, and you always go back to the then the provider of that system or the provider of that app. They would say, oh, it's just down to a third party, a third party upgrade. And this third-party upgrade, the system shut down because we uploaded it. Guys, remember what I keep saying about these cyber attacks. No private company is ever going to admit that they've been under a cyber attack, especially banking systems, because the golden standard for any cyber attack is to cause a financial crisis. And that's what ultimately they're all trying to do. So you can imagine if your bank came out and said, hey guys, listen, yeah, well, your money's safe, but we were under a cyber attack and a load of people did lose their money. What are you going to do with your money in that bank? Everybody overnight will take their money out of that bank. That banking system, that banking company will collapse. And then what you would see then is potentially a knock-on effect to other banks, other financial institutes, where people just think, listen, my money is not safe. I'm going to either put that in gold or silver or put it under my bed. Guys, obviously that's not financial advice. Do what you want with your money. I'm not saying buy gold and I'm certainly not saying buy silver, but that is what people predominantly do in times of crisis, and incidentally, they're where, those two stocks, they're the ones that go, they're the ones that normally go up in times of crisis. So what should we look for on the streets what should we look for if we're in the United Kingdom? I think as soon as these North Korean troops get deployed to Ukraine and, they're actively seen on the front line, maybe some have taken casualties, doesn't really matter how successful they are. What that's going to do is, and we've already heard rhetoric from the United Kingdom, from France, about putting troops on the ground in Ukraine. Remember, guys, it's an open secret. There are already troops on the ground in Ukraine. There's already NATO troops on, NATO special forces on the ground in Ukraine. We know this because I think it was the German defense minister came out and he leaked this. So, that information is already there available. And then you've got to look at this equally, though, from the Russian side. As far as the Russians are concerned, they've been reporting that there's NATO troops already on the ground in Ukraine. So for the Russian side, they've been, as far as Russian media is concerned, if you live in Russia, Russia's been playing by the rules for the longest time. But, now the North Koreans are entering on the side of the Russians. Guys, once this happens, expect more rhetoric from the United Kingdom and more pressure to be put on the United Kingdom for actual green boots on the ground in Ukraine. By green, I mean green army, mass deployment, mass logistics chains, all that sort of stuff that you would expect in a ground invasion. And once that infrastructure is inside, you will just see mission creep. Remember, this will start as a training mission. The training mission will involve an aspect of mentoring, because with training you have mentoring, and mentoring means going on the front line with those guys. Guys, I do apologize for my voice. I've been using it quite a lot the last couple of days with work, but I'm going to max a grid and I'll get you guys another video later.